Salutations and welcome to Pod Mortem. I'm Reneé Hunter Vasquez, joined as always by my co-host, my husband, and my brother.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
Hi, I'm Travis Hunter.
This week, we're recording live from an occult shop in LA discussing the 1996 supernatural horror film, The Craft. The Craft was directed by Andrew Fleming, who also wrote the screenplay with Peter Filardi. It stars Robin Tooney as Sarah, Fairuza Balk as Nancy, Rachel True as Rochelle, and Neve Campbell as Bonnie. This movie received an R rating even after edits to make it PG-13 solely for its depiction of female teenage witches. Despite its seemingly taboo subject matter, The Craft has been influential and in at least one instance completely ripped off for its depiction of contemporary witches. What did you guys think about The Craft the first time you saw it?
It was okay. I mean, I liked it because Neve Campbell was in it. But, I mean, that's about it. I don't really...
It's funny that he says that because genuinely, I remember seeing this as a child.
Yeah.
And I remember this cast, these were some of my first crushes.
With good reason.
Like, period.
Well,
And
two
so...
of them. I don't know.
Whatever. But there's a lot of nostalgic feelings for this movie.
For sure.
For me, because I was like in elementary school and I was like, man, I hope high school's this cool. I don't know why. This was my model high school, but...
No, it wasn't.
I remember really enjoying the movie as a kid and rewatching it for this episode. I enjoyed it. It's a good movie.
No, it's a lot of fun. When I was a kid, I absolutely loved it. Like, loved it. I wanted to be them. Like, they were goals in life. And I don't know what that says about me, but
Hey,
like,
I see nothing wrong.
I adored it. And even watching it now, like, is it a perfect movie? No, it's not a perfect movie, but it is very nostalgic. And I think it's even enjoyable to watch now.
It's very of its time.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Everything from the clothes to the music. The music.
Oh, man.
And I know you mentioned something about that when I was watching. You were like, oh, I love the soundtrack, whatever. I can only tell you, I'll be honest with you, I've heard maybe one or two songs from that whole movie.
Oh, man.
Ever before, ever. I've never heard any of that music before, ever.
I didn't catch how good of a soundtrack it was when I was a kid.
Definitely, but it's
I
good.
dig it. I think it's a good one. But this is one of those movies that I think a lot of people would say didn't age well. But I think that you shouldn't look at this movie through that lens. I think this movie is one of those movies that has cult status for a reason.
For sure.
And you should just watch it for what it is, and you will have a good time.
I agree with that. I also want to... This film has like an extra special place in my heart because it was like Rachel True was the first representation that I saw of someone who who had hair like me. So that was like a really, and I have more to say about that obviously later, but that was a really big deal for me as a kid because nobody in movies represented me in that way. So that was pretty, like, even as a kid, I was like, oh, I love her. Like, that's all it took.
She's who I'm paying attention
to.
Me too.
Now, before we bind this film from doing harm, we would like to issue a warning for spoilers. Pod Mortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film and come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, then let's call the corners. So the film opens on three girls, I guess, doing rituals, and they're chanting, now is the time, ours is the hour, ours is the magic, ours is the power.
Does it have to rhyme?
Everything has to rhyme.
It's got to.
So then immediately we see a bunch of like flashes of tarot symbols, and Our Lady Peace's cover of Tomorrow Never Knows plays.
Interesting band to choose to cover.
Yeah.
I was reading a lot about the Beatles and as why you don't really hear a lot of their music, original recordings on TV and movies. It's because A, it's expensive as hell.
Yeah.
I read when Mad Men played Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah.
It cost them $250,000.
God damn, are you serious?
Yeah.
And they even played the whole song.
No. And the thing is that they reserve the right to pick and choose who uses their music, but even after they use it, they get to dictate how it's used. They
What the fuck?
yeah, they licensed the song Revolution for a Nike commercial. And then Nike paid $250,000 to use it, but then they sued Nike because they didn't like the way it was used. So I understand why The Craft was like, let's just fucking cover it. Not even deal with it.
It's not even worth
It's
all
not
that.
worth
I didn't know
That's
that.
insane.
That's rough.
We get the title card for The Craft, and then we see Sarah, who's I guess going to be our protagonist, on a plane with her parents. They get in a taxi at the airport and go to their new home.
Unless you're going to say that was a fake background.
It clearly was.
That no rain could have changed the way that looked. Like, that looked bad.
There's a lot of things in this movie that as a kid I forgave on the stance of like special effects and stuff. And even as a kid I was like, damn, that looks good. And then now I'm like,
okay, so I'm glad.
My personal issue with this is the fact that her parents get in the back seat and leave her alone up front with the taxi driver. I thought that was
her dad should get.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. But I was like, okay.
I was just too distracted by that background. Like, because at first I even had to pause it and rewind it because I was like, that looked funny. I was like, because it did. I was like, what the hell? And you notice that there's a cab, I guess, on the other side of the street. And then behind it, you can tell it's just a backdrop. And it's like, oh, shit.
So I can see the green of
this.
So anyway, like we said, it's raining. And the house that they go in looks pretty run down. Like the ceiling's leaking. The walls look stained.
It's funny because from the outside, I was like, damn, is everyone
it's
rich?
Beautiful,
and then they get inside and it's horrible.
So Sarah goes upstairs and unpacks a framed picture of a woman. We see it. Right. Moving on.
The camera makes sure we see it.
Yeah.
She goes downstairs and is kind of looking through, I guess, the boxes or whatever that are there. And a random ass man walks in the house and is like, hey, you want this snake?
I was a little confused by this because what reaction did he expect?
No, she's horrified and he's like, w's wrong with you?
He told her to relax.
Yeah.
I mean, relax.
He's like, the old owners used to buy snakes off me. It's just weird.
So understandably, she calls for her dad. Her dad chases him away with a fire poker.
Yeah.
And when he's running off, I was like, where's the snake? He's like chopping. Like, he doesn't have the snake.
His hands do not.
It's on the dad's shoe, and he throws the poker down at it.
He goes like full Poseidon with a trident.
Yeah, he does.
But like, I felt like they were both surprisingly chill for what had just happened.
Yeah. Like, well, let's unpack.
Right. I guess he comes with the house.
Yeah, shit.
Leaky ceilings and snake men.
And snake charmers.
So in the next scene, her dad drops her off at school and makes mention of the fact that she doesn't even have a uniform. Like, she doesn't have to go yet.
And she wouldn't be able to go yet.
No.
We went to...
But she's like, Dad, I got to do this. Yeah,
when
we were in
middle school, you had to have a uniform, and if you didn't have a uniform, they would send you home.
But this school is very lax on uniforms in general.
They are. It makes no sense.
She goes in and insists that she will walk home. There's I thought a pretty cool shot of when she's walking into, I guess it's like a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's this huge like bloody crucifix that she passes underneath, and she kind of looks up at it like,
damn,
fuck.
They mean business here.
Yeah. So inside the school, we see the three girls that were chanting at the very, very beginning. They stand out in the crowd.
Yes.
Of everything else.
Because their uniforms are different than everybody
They're
else.
wearing their own version of the uniform.
The cool version.
Right. They walk past three guys who kind of are making fun of them and calling them scary bitches.
I gotta be honest, jocks are so fucking dumb. Like, and they're made even dumber in movies.
Oh, of course.
And the thing is like, I think that's what I don't understand is that it's kind of the problem that happens with a lot of movies today is that they make these downtrodden people still very attractive.
Oh, yeah.
And so you know for a fact that these women are like movie stars and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And so
they're like, oh, stupid bitch.
They would not be.
No,
all the jocks, they would be like, I don't care what group she belongs to. I'm still going to try to date her.
Yeah.
But they're like, witches and shit.
So the guys are Chris, who's played by Skeet Ulrich, making this the second film in 1996 that he's in with Neve Campbell. Mitt, who's played by Breckin Meyer.
Right,
and
I love that guy.
I know. Yeah. And Trey.
Yeah.
Sorry, Trey.
Some guy. Sorry, Trey.
Whoever you are.
So the girls are Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle. At Nancy's locker, Bonnie is reading an almanac and is kind of saying that something's supposed to arrive today that's going to bring a balance and wholeness, and she says maybe it's our fourth.
Right.
And Nancy pulls a noose out of her locker.
And just plays with it.
I made a note about that too. So you just have this noose hanging out, and
it's fine.
And she's like dangling
around
with
playing with it.
Nobody sees a problem with
that. No teacher's like, oh, excuse me.
Look how they're dressed. I don't think the teachers really give a
care.
shit.
She didn't even close her locker.
No.
The locker was just open.
They're like, they're not going to fuck with us. We're witches.
But as she's playing with this news, she says that they don't need a fourth. But Bonnie's like, yes, we do. So in French class, the French teacher is talking to Mitt in French, and Mitt is being like a douchey class clown, basically.
Right.
And from the back of the class, Sarah chimes in French, and Mitt calls her a snail trail.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I have that right there. What the fuck did he just call her?
Was that a
What is
popular
that?
90s
I don't
insult?
know.
I mean,
I never heard it.
neither did I, but
Maybe you
we'll say
weren't
yes.
being a snail trail.
Yeah, maybe.
You weren't a jock,
I
so
wasn't cool enough.
yeah. But her chiming in has made Chris notice her and Bonnie notice her.
So I did have a question about I took German in college and Spanish in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know any of the French, but did he genuinely ask Mitt if he got laid last night? Because he answered that question in French and the teacher wasn't like, "How dare you?"
Yeah.
You know? What is the school?
Yeah. And the bad thing is that I took 2 years of French,
And you don't know.
I don't know.
He's like, "Did he?"
All I learned was how to say, "Can I please go to the bathroom?" And that was it.
And then you never came
That's
back.
what I learned from Spanish class.
That was it.
As Bonnie's watching her, Sarah sets up a pencil on its point. She lets go of it, and it not only stays, but begins spinning in a circle. Bonnie gasps loudly, and then
she
the
comes
pencil
on
falls.
herself.
Good Lord.
She does.
I had a bit of commentary for that, but I can't say anything after that.
Can't follow that.
No. All I wanted to say was, why is she doing this in the middle of class? Like,
Yeah,
did she
In front of-
shit.
in
yeah.
front of
Nobody
anybody
would
that
notice.
could
see,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not like she was hiding it behind,
No.
set up the folder or whatever.
Yeah.
She's just, oh, look what I can do.
Yeah, no, just out in front of
Anybody
everybody.
could look. And the French teacher is looking in that direction.
Yeah.
So he
Well,
could
he
have
was
been
just,
like,
he was just talking to her.
what the fuck?
Right?
In
Bitch,
anything.
are you a witch?
They were right.
Roll
Yeah.
credits.
Yeah. And that's The Craft. It's a short film.
Yeah, right. That's over.
Yeah.
The next scene is biology class, and Bonnie tells the girls, Rochelle and Nancy, that their fourth is here. And she's like, she's right there. And it's Sarah. So Sarah comes up to them and she's like, hey, can I be your guys' lab partners?
Yeah.
And Nancy fucking stares her down.
Why immediately?
Ugly.
Yeah, I don't.
Until she gives up and walks away. But she leaves and Bonnie waits until she's like gone to whisper, no, you can sit here.
Right.
Yeah.
Come back. Yeah,
It's
it's like,
like,
Bonnie,
what?
you didn't even try. Stop.
And then she looks at Nancy like, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
But it's like, you could have
Yeah,
called
you
her
didn't
back.
even
At
try.
any- at
And what
time.
was Rochelle doing? Why didn't
She's just
she
watching.
say anything?
So at lunch, Sarah's sitting alone and Chris comes up to her and apologizes for his friend's behavior. And she kind of roundabout calls him an asshole.
Yeah.
And she apologizes and says that she's on edge because people have been really rude to her all day. Specifically, Nancy, Bonnie, and
Right.
Rochelle. So he looks over and he's like, oh, them? You know, he's like, Bonnie, she has burns all over her body. I've never seen it, but my friends have.
He's got a lot of secondhand information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nancy, oh, she's a slut. I don't know from experience, but my friends do. But he doesn't say anything about Rochelle at all.
No, he doesn't.
Nothing wrong with her.
There's nothing wrong
He's
with
like,
her.
she's cool.
She's cool.
It's guilt by association.
The odd thing about this scene, I don't know if either of you noticed, but nearly every line was dubbed.
I did.
No,
yes,
yes.
I did
No,
notice
no,
that
Like,
big time.
it
I
was
never noticed that
real
until I
bad.
watched it this
And it-
time.
And it's not only this scene.
No,
though.
it's not. I was
It's
gonna.
Not only this scene.
I don't want to bring it up every scene that it happens. I had thought about
I
it, but
will.
I'm like,
No,
I'll
I will. But
it happens a lot. I don't know if they just weren't happy with how certain
no,
things
it's-
sounded.
and
I don't know,
some
but
of them
it
are
is-
worse than others.
It's pretty obvious.
It's really
though.
bad.
Yeah. So Chris tells Sarah that they're witches. Then he's like, well, I have football practice after school. You can like come watch me if you want.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I
Right,
can?
sure, pal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she kind of blows him off and she's like, oh, you know, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
But then he walks away in slow motion and, you know, there's,
Yeah.
there's something going on. So promptly she is watching him at football practice and a cover of How Soon Is Now plays.
Why didn't they use the Smiths?
I don't
Original
know.
because this honestly I don't know the band that did it. To me it sounded I know it wasn't, but it sounded like Smash Mouth covering. And I was not a fan.
That
I was
song
not a
is
fan
so
of this cover.
amazing,
Yes,
too.
the song is really good. Just use the original. They're not the Beatles. They're not going to charge
Yeah,
you.
no shit. Nobody's the Beatles.
No.
But she's watching him at practice or whatever. And the girls walk up and she's like, oh, I'm not here to watch him. Like, I'm not watching him.
Yeah.
And Rochelle apologizes for Nancy's rudeness while Nancy just kind of stands there. And she's like, oh, she's always like that. So don't take it personally.
Yeah.
I think I'd be like, okay, so this is like, yeah, fuck this.
Well, can I hear it from Nancy, please?
Yeah, I'm good. They all introduce themselves officially to her. And when Sarah tries to introduce herself, they're like, oh, we know who you are.
Wait, what?
It's like, yeah, okay. I guess they do because she was in all of their classes. But
Yeah, somehow.
so Nancy invites her for coffee.
I just want to say, witches who drink coffee, that's like my dream demographic.
Nancy invites her for coffee and she says no. And abruptly, Nancy's like, he'll hit on anybody with tits. And Bonnie's like, except me. But
Yeah.
And nobody says anything to Bonnie saying that. They're like, she's just
yeah,
let her
accept
soul.
her.
Yeah. Like, for real, he won't.
Yeah. Right.
And again, Sarah denies that she is there watching him when it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, when they looked over at them at lunch, they were staring at them. Like,
No, yeah.
the girls
yeah.
were staring at Chris and Sarah. Like, it's undeniable you're here watching him. Apparently, this is a thing that he makes girls do. Like, it seems like.
It's part of his ritual.
Right. So Nancy, and I thought this was interesting, she said that he spreads disease and that she knows that from personal experience.
But then he was like, I've just heard from...
Yeah. Not me, but my friend.
Yeah, her info's firsthand.
Yeah. That immediately would make me be like, oh, fuck this dude.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, and we'll talk more about that too.
No.
Yeah.
Nancy cheers at Chris and he immediately falls. And
Dude,
like,
he eats shit and he
Yeah.
looks dead on the ground. It's
That
made me
looks
laugh since
funny.
I was a child. Because he's just like
Yeah.
out.
so Bonnie says they're going shopping and it's okay that Sarah doesn't have any money because they're going to get a 5-finger discount. So as they're walking to go shopping, Sarah tells them that she used to live in San Francisco and that her dad wanted to move here. Mm-hmm. Nancy notices a scar on Sarah's wrist and Sarah admits that she did it to herself with the kitchen knife.
It's a little too soon for her to be sharing this with them,
I
thought.
Especially since their meeting has been like really not very
No.
smooth. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, we're soulmates. Like, no,
No.
this girl was a fucking bitch to you just a couple hours ago.
And now you're like, here's my life story.
Yeah. I never really thought about that.
No.
But like, that's a good point. I thought it was odd that Bonnie goes, she even did it the right way.
Right.
And Rochelle's like, what? How do you know that? What do you mean? And Bonnie's just like, shut up.
Yeah.
So like I kind of expected a little more from that because it seemed like Rochelle was like, what?
Yeah, what does
Oh,
that
well,
mean?
She kept asking her, and then it just shut down. I was wondering, like, if Bonnie had attempted something.
So
in the
I
past.
thought I had thought more would come from that, but
and then maybe
it
her
really
and
didn't.
Yeah.
Sarah could like
Could
talk
bond
about
over
that
that,
and bond
yeah.
over it, but it never comes up again.
But no. So they go into this like beautiful occult shop.
No, it's great.
Oh, yeah. It looked
Like,
really
I would
cool in there.
kill
I
for
would
a
go-
plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as they get there, Bonnie immediately tries to get Sarah to steal a book.
Without okay, so this bothered me a lot. This is an occult shop run by a very nice woman.
Yeah.
Do they really think that she doesn't know what they're doing, A, and B, somebody running an occult shop in your town, literally the subject that you have like thrown yourself into.
You want to support them.
Yeah, you're literally, she could be a mentor. No pun intended. You're robbing yourself of this pretty cool opportunity
Yeah.
by jacking her shit all the
I
time.
mean, this
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah,
Walmart.
Like,
no,
no.
shit,
Not that I'm
yeah.
saying to steal from Walmart. But
well, no,
make your own decisions.
exactly. I'm not the boss of you.
So Bonnie explains the book, and Sarah's like, "Oh, you guys are like, this is real for you guys."
Yeah.
There's this back room with like a black curtain over it, and Sarah tries to go back there.
Well, I'm sorry, but if this is a place where nobody's meant to go, maybe your security should be better than a fucking curtain.
Yeah, just a blanket over it.
Maybe
mean,
a
right?
sign.
Yeah, or how about a door with a lock on
Something.
it?
Nah.
Yeah, that doesn't even need magic.
So the owner stops her by grabbing her arm. The owner is Lirio, played by Assumpta Serna. And when Sarah says that she's going to pay for the stuff that she is holding, she goes, oh, so you're not like your friends.
Yeah, see, she knows.
Yeah.
So she already knows they're stealing shit.
And oddly is cool with it.
Yeah.
She's like,
look,
they'll get theirs.
I do my inventory around their stealing. All right. I always break even.
So Sarah's buying candles, and Lirio starts to explain them to her. And then she's like, you know what? Just take this book and it'll explain it to you.
Right.
So Sarah buys that book.
The book is called The Craft.
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Yeah, it is.
She buys the book, candles, and a diary, and it's only $20.
These are
So I
some
was
good-
like, hell yeah.
it was a
We'd
good
be
deal.
frequenting this shop.
So Lirio tells Sarah that she's a natural witch, which
Yeah.
Which-
Yeah.
we'll talk more about later.
Right.
Outside, it's dark now, and Sarah wants to go home. They're walking through a group of homeless people, and the man that came into her house with the snake is there.
Right.
And he's chasing after her.
Well, he's still trying to sell her the snake.
Yeah. But, like, wait.
He's trying to sell it.
Wasn't that snake killed by her
Oh,
dad?
yeah. Well, he found a new
It's
one.
a new
It's
snake.
another snake.
Well, I think another thing that bothers me about this scene is that his voice is so kind to
Yes.
her.
And it
Yeah.
also, his voice does not match his
Yeah, his
mouth
voice
at
is
all.
also
It's,
dubbed.
at
it's
any
another
point.
one that's
Yeah.
dubbed, but he's literally he's a creepy guy on the street,
Yeah.
trying to give a snake to the protagonist, and he's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I need to talk to you." It's like, why don't you have him gruff?
Yeah,
you know,
like
it's an
scary.
odd choice for the
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah. But he, in that nice, calm voice, he tells her that he had a dream about her, and in the dream, she was dead. So Sarah runs.
Right.
Yeah, because that's what everybody wants to hear.
Yeah. She runs into, was he a preacher?
I
Maybe
mean, he was wearing the clothes.
He
Yeah.
was dressed like a preacher.
but he didn't seem well.
No.
No.
And she just keeps running. She crosses the street to get away from Snake Man. And when he follows her across the street, he gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Well, Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle get into their "we're making this happen" stance.
Yeah.
And then he gets hit by a car, and he gets fucking creamed
Yeah.
by that car, dude. You get a shot under the wheels of the car, and you see it hit his head.
Oh, yeah, no,
No,
he's
no,
done.
yeah.
Yeah, he's done.
Lights out for the Snake Man.
Yeah. So the girls run. And they run into this like lightly wooded area with the busted couch and some makeshift seats. So I guess this is like a hangout.
I
I
was
don't know.
like, is this The Wire?
So Bonnie is all excited, saying that they made the car hit Snake Man.
Right.
And that this is just proof that Sarah is their fourth. And Rochelle goes, maybe Manon will listen now. Which we're all like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Is that a friend of yours?
Right. They kind of go into detail that he is older than God, so he's not any modern religion. And Nancy reiterates that he's everything. The example that she gives is if God and the devil were playing football.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Manon-
Bringing it back to Chris.
Yes,
Yeah.
is the stadium and the sun. It's so much bigger than the game or the players, basically.
One interesting thing about this is that Manon, if I'm saying that right at all, is not a real deity in paganism at all. They actually had a pagan consultant on the film, which I thought was pretty cool and
No, that's
respectable
awesome.
and
Yeah.
commendable. I got this information from the craft page on Fandom, but the woman's name is Pat Devon, and she actually said that the reason that they made up a deity instead of using a real one is because they didn't want teenagers to see this movie and then just go fucking outside and start invoking
Yeah.
real deities.
That's really responsible
no,
Yeah.
and like
She's
thoughtful.
like, the thing is that it can be dangerous, is what
Yeah,
she said.
you
So
don't
she's
know
like,
what
we
you're
don't
doing.
need teenagers trying to mimic this and then fucking ruining, their lives, basically. She also said that it would be disrespectful to the real deities if they just used them as like a character in a movie.
No,
I like
yeah.
that.
So I was like, that's pretty,
Yeah.
No,
that's
that
pretty
makes
cool.
sense. That makes sense.
And the fact that the writers or the producers or whoever would bring her on board to advise, and also the other advisor, as far as the paganism was concerned, was Firuza Balk. She was recently, at the time, was getting into paganism.
so cool.
And so her and Pat Devon kind of worked together to make sure everything was on the up and up.
That's awesome. So here again, Bonnie calls Sarah a natural witch. And Sarah kind of expands on this, saying that she does, dabble in stuff, but it never works out right. Mm-hmm. That she'll want it to rain and a pipe will burst and her house gets flooded,
Right.
or
Nancy's like, bullshit.
Nancy's
sure.
not feeling it. Or she'll want it to be quiet and she'll go deaf for 3 days. And Nancy's, she's not.
First of all, that's a long time. Especially to have to, like, they would take her to the doctor, her parents, right?
You would think.
Like, are you okay?
So Nancy is like, okay, whatever. Have you ever invoked Manon? Mm-hmm. Which, no, because she never heard of him before 2
like,
minutes
I just
ago.
asked you what it was. It's just you just trying to become the leader again.
Right, yeah. So she says that you call him and he fills you and he makes everything wrong in your life right again. So this clearly makes Sarah uncomfortable and she's like, that can't happen. Mm-hmm. She gets up and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in the next scene, she's with Chris on a rooftop.
Is this the same night?
Yeah, I'm a little confused about
the
There's
timeline.
some weird time stuff
timelines
going on
are,
because she straight up told them whenever Nancy asked her out for coffee, she's like, well, I got to get home.
Yeah.
And then she goes out and does all this shit at night. And then she's out with Chris. And then she's like, well, I got to get home.
Yeah.
It's like her parents are like, where the fuck is she? This is our
First
first
day
night.
of school.
You can't go to that school anymore.
Chris is going on a spiel about head sizes.
Yeah.
And uses it as some segue to kiss Sarah.
He says that she has a pretty head. That's some Ted Bundy shit. It's like, I'd like to see it on my mantle.
I was.
And then
He's like, you got a great head. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
no, it's
yeah,
like-
that's
was
what you're
fun.
leading with?
It's like
That's
really
your line?
lame,
No.
but
Yeah.
he kisses her.
In the
worked-
90s,
yeah, it worked
people
somehow.
were very insecure about their head sizes.
Apparently. So then after one kiss, he's like, hey, let's go to my house. Nobody's home. And she's not feeling it.
Mm-mm.
And that's pretty much it. I guess they call it a night.
Well, also, when they're leaving his friends and they tell him bye, clearly you hear him say see ya, but his mouth doesn't move.
He's a ventriloquist
Yeah.
in his spare time. He plays football and he
It's all in the trivia. You didn't read the
I
trivia?
didn't know that.
you got to read the script.
Right? Right. Don't open your mouth, but you're going to say see ya.
Yeah.
The next day at school, the girls come up to Sarah in biology and ask about her date with Chris. Chris apparently has told everybody that they did it. Not only that, but that she was horrible.
I gotta ask, what is the logic behind this lie?
Yeah.
She
I
turned him
never-
down.
But no,
Yeah.
even that, to say that
But-
she was bad. What's the
Yeah.
logic behind that?
Because and you're right though, because I've gone to high school, with people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
And it was like, what do you get out of
There's
lying
no
about
point.
that? Yeah, it's like, what does that do?
No, he's an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert. He's a fucking asshole.
Well, we know that,
Yeah.
but
It just, as I'm watching it, I'm like, what do you gain?
Yeah, what is this? What's your game? But across the room, Laura, played by Christine Taylor, I like her. It always surprises me that she was in this, and the character that she plays in
Oh,
this.
no. Sally Sitwell is...
Yeah, she's not sitting well.
No, she's not. Not with me.
So, but across the room, she's laughing at Sarah, and the girls tell her he did this same thing to Nancy.
It's like, why didn't you tell us this early? Well, I mean, I guess she did in a
yeah,
way.
kind
But-
of.
But wait a minute.
It's a conflicting story.
It is from Chris alone.
And from Nancy, that I know from experience that he spreads disease. Oh, he lied on me and said we did stuff and we didn't. Like, every piece of this is conflicting. And I have more to say about that later. So in the hallway, I guess after class, Sarah tries to talk to Chris and Mitt blows her off, which would just piss me off even more.
Yeah, it's like, don't get your little friend out of the way.
Yes. So she asked Chris why he lied about her, and he loudly is like, no, I don't want to go out with you. Like, he calls her pathetic and says that she's begging.
I think Sarah should have been like, Chris is 30 years old, he's still a junior. Like, then everyone's on him, right?
So Sarah is like, fuck you, and she leaves, and Chris's friends are just laughing about it. So again, I guess in swim class,
Yeah.
We all took swim.
we all took swim class.
Yeah.
Rochelle is up on the diving board about to dive off. And Laura and her friend are laughing at her. And as she dives, Laura yells, shark. And Rochelle fucking lands on her back on the water.
Where are the coaches?
For real.
Because that should have been like, that's 9 laps, Laura. You want to make it
Right.
10? Why didn't I start with 10? That's an even number. But,
Yeah.
like, they just let it happen. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, you would think that a coach would have said something.
You would hope,
Yeah.
but it gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
In the locker room, Laura sees Rochelle walk past her and loudly says that there's a pubic hair in her brush. Oh, wait, it's just one of Rochelle's little nappy hairs.
Now, as a kid, I was like, wow, that's really mean. But as an adult, I was like, wow, that's what they called me in high school.
Yeah, that's my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It hit
me
way
too.
closer to home than I...
Even watching this movie as a teenager, this scene got to me because me personally, like Rachel True's hair was like hair goals for me.
Right.
And so I'm like, God damn, so even if I get there, it's not going to stop. Like, they're still going to
fuck me.
They're still going to fucking
Yeah.
make fun of me. Maybe that's why this movie, and especially Rochelle's character, like hits a little closer to home for me because I relate to her struggle in this movie like a lot.
Right. And that makes it difficult for me as things continue to feel the way that they want me to feel in this film.
Yeah.
And we'll get to
we're on
that.
this. Yeah. We'll talk more about that. But again, it gets even worse. Rochelle confronts her and asks why she's bullying her. Pretty as you please. Laura says, I don't like negroids.
Which I've never heard that version in my entire
Yeah,
life.
is that even a word? What the fuck does that mean?
This is a
I
new
wonder-
brand of racism.
Yeah, well,
It makes me feel like maybe that's not the word that was in the script,
And
but
Christine-
Christine Taylor didn't want to say.
yeah.
I don't blame her.
I have no proof of that at
But
all, but
I don't-
it's really weird.
Yeah.
No, it is.
And I actually learned from watching Horror Noir on
Yes.
Shudder, which
Excellent documentary.
wow, if you haven't seen that, watch it. But Rachel True was on there and said that when she read for Rochelle, Rochelle's problem was supposed to be anorexia, because I guess each girl has a stigma about something.
Right.
And once they cast Rachel True, they were like, oh, well, your issue can be that you're black.
It's
And it's like, which is pretty insulting,
Yeah.
actually. And I guess that's why Chris couldn't say anything about her.
yeah.
No, I mean, the thing that is interesting to me is you're like, well, that's a little weird to just flip it on the fly like that for that actress. But at the same time, it's like, it is something that I dealt with in school.
Definitely.
So it makes it something relatable for me. Because other than that, you know, I'm kind of just watching a movie that's entertaining.
Right.
But then you're like, oh shit, this is... I can
No,
understand that.
I can say personally she is the one piece of this movie that really brings it home and personal for me. But
Right.
not to stray too far.
No.
Back to the movie. In the hospital, Bonnie is with her mom, and her doctor, played by Brenda Strong,
She gave up the O. Henry fortune
yes,
to become a doctor. That's admirable.
and she moved off of Wisteria Lane.
Yeah.
Anyway, she is telling Bonnie and her mom that this new treatment is going to be non-invasive, but probably painful.
She says somewhat painful.
Well,
Could have been more accurate, I'd say.
yeah. In the OR, I guess, we finally see Bonnie's back, and she is burned. I would have kind of liked a story on how that happened to her.
She's just all crispy, but we don't get to
Oh,
find out how.
crispy.
It's only her back, though.
Yeah.
True.
Like,
There's a story there.
But this new non-invasive procedure is taking a machine and repeatedly poking Bonnie's back with a needle.
Now I'm gonna need to know what the hell this
Yeah,
procedure
I
is.
was just as confused. I had no idea. I was like, so you're getting a
I
tattoo
thought the same.
without the ink.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Because I don't know, man. I've watched a lot of Nip Tuck. I was like, they'll just do some skin grafts, right?
15 blade.
Yeah, yeah. Instead, they're like, let's do the needle thing.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell like it's doing, but Bonnie is screaming. She's in horrible pain.
Somewhat painful.
Yeah. So in the next scene, randomly, we have Sarah laying in her bed while it's raining outside, thinking about the time that she slit her wrists.
And she slices it the wrong angle.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm glad you caught it. It's the wrong arm.
It is.
It's not even the right arm.
It's
Thank
not,
you.
dude. I don't know why they. First of all, I don't know why they included the scene to
The
begin
scene
with.
really doesn't. I don't know either.
But that was not good.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
no,
who
I have it
No.
in my notes too. So at Nancy's house, she's coming in from the rain. I'm guessing this is the same night. And as soon as Nancy comes inside, the lights go out. Nancy goes and lays in her bed, and rain is dripping from the ceiling onto her forehead while her mom yells at her stepdad for not using the money she gave him to pay the electric bill.
It's hard not to have sympathy for her.
Yeah, her home life seems pretty rough.
Really
just
bad.
From the little glimpse that we've seen. So presumably the next day at school, Nancy invites Sarah on a field trip. So I guess they
can just skip school.
Yeah. On the bus, Sarah's making faces at a little girl while Nancy is just glaring at this child. Did anybody else see that?
Yeah.
It's kind of exactly who these characters are
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
It's very on brand.
Yeah.
But we get that iconic moment when they get off the bus
Oh, yeah.
and the driver tells them to watch out for weirdos. And Nancy replies, "We are the weirdos, mister."
It's so good. I love it. But that poor bus driver, he's like, dude, last time I tried to make a fucking friend, all right?
Trying to be nice to you girls.
But that's a really iconic moment. There are quite honestly a few moments in this movie that you're like, I understand this cult status.
Yeah, no,
It's there's some great moments.
So their field trip apparently was to the woods, and they're all chanting their elements: earth, water, fire, and air.
They're doing it in like runs though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Earth, water, fire.
Yeah.
It's like
I
I'm a little
noticed that
confused.
too. Yeah.
But they knew which ones to say at each time. I was like, wow, they
But they were
rehearsed them.
fixing to start singing or
Exactly,
something.
yeah. Fucking TLC and
Yeah.
shit.
So they do a ritual promising to enter the circle with perfect love and perfect trust, but they're holding a knife to each other's chest while they're kind of inducting each other, I
Yeah.
guess. So then they prick their fingers and bleed into a wine chalice,
Right.
and they all take a drink and ask for something.
That's a real good way to get sick.
Yeah.
All right. Don't recommend it.
Rochelle asks for the ability to not hate those who hate her, specifically Laura, which I thought was
Really?
a really like beautiful thing to ask for.
And it's mature.
Yes.
And that's another thing that we're going to get into later.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that later.
Sarah asked for the ability to love herself and to allow herself to be loved by others, specifically asshole Chris.
I'm like,
Why?
You're wasting your power on this fucker.
Yeah, why?
I didn't understand that either.
You're
I
out of the
didn't-
circle.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out.
All right, go
Think of the
home.
last
Yeah.
interaction that she
Take
had
a
with
lap.
him.
Yeah.
Take
Take a lap.
Right.
Think of the last interaction that she had with him. What
No,
about
yeah.
that made you say, that's my
Right,
guy?
That's
Yeah.
my man right there. I was like, what the fuck?
No.
Bonnie asked to have the power to be beautiful inside and out, and Nancy asked to take into herself all the power of Manon.
I feel like she should have dreamed a little smaller. Everybody else is kind of taking just like pieces of the pie. She bought a fucking bakery with her wish.
I want everything.
Yeah, and it was in this scene that I thought it was really interesting because it seems like each one of the girls kind of represents a problem that leads to being bullied. That each one kind of takes on a theme. You have depression and self-esteem.
Yeah.
You have poverty.
Yeah.
You have racism. And you
Yeah.
have physical imperfection.
Damn,
so
that's-
they kind of have everything cornered.
Yeah.
As far as
That's
so
a really good point.
everyone can kind of relate to at least something here.
No, that's true.
Especially if you were growing up in the 90s, you're like, this is my shit.
Yeah, I
There's
feel
something
that.
here.
Yeah. So dozens of butterflies descend on them, I guess, as proof that
Right.
Manon
Is
is
listening.
listening. Yeah. So I guess the next day, again, timelines aren't really
Yeah.
clear
No,
in
Yeah.
this movie. I'm assuming the next day, Chris keeps staring at Sarah in class, and Sarah and Bonnie are pretty amused by it. After class, he follows them and admits to lying about her
Yeah.
and says that he will tell everyone that he lied about her.
Yeah.
He has to sit with them in mass, and Sarah makes him hold her and Bonnie's books and her bag. And his friends are like, dude, like, what the fuck are you doing?
But he's just like, oh, I guess I'll sit with Sarah and
Yeah.
while I have her purse around my
Yeah.
neck.
Right.
So from another pew, I thought it was weird that they weren't sitting together, but Rochelle and Nancy are sitting elsewhere, and Rochelle points out that Sarah's spell is working. Like,
Yeah.
obviously it's working.
Nancy's like, damn, I should get the roof fixed.
Right.
I guess
I should have done
should I have
something
gone
else.
smaller?
Kept the lights on.
Yeah, god damn.
So that night, maybe,
Sure.
Bonnie's house, Sarah asks them if they've ever played light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Thought it was odd that Sarah was the one that asked about this game.
That's true, because any of the other girls would have made more sense.
Yeah, you know what? I did notice that too. I'm like, why does she keep like initiating all of this? And I was like,
when she wasn't leaning into it until she met them.
No, and it seems to me like part of her journey is not really having friends. So who would she be doing this with? At least it makes sense that the other girls have always had each other.
No,
And maybe they could never do it before because it was just the three of them.
Right.
Let's try it with the fourth.
Damn, that would have been better because her being there made it work.
Exactly. Right?
Damn it.
So, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was odd.
I feel like when we get together, we write the movies better.
Call us Hollywood. I don't know specifically.
The Hollywood 3.
We're renaming the podcast.
So they play. Rochelle is lying on the floor, and they chant and put their fingers under Rochelle, and she starts floating without even realizing it.
If you were growing up in the 90s and you didn't try this,
you're lying.
You're lying. And if you really didn't, what were you doing with your life?
Never tried it.
Really? Oh, we tried this. Didn't work. We did not get the success.
Sarah wasn't with us.
I do it with the cat, but it's usually just me carrying the cat.
So they move their fingers away from her and stop chanting, and she's still floating. And Rochelle is, understandably a little freaked out, and they tell her to relax and concentrate. But then Bonnie's mom comes in with fresh towels.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
was this an airline?
Fresh towels and peanuts.
Yeah.
And Rochelle falls to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get a little bonding montage with the girls. They're studying witchcraft at lunch. They're having another sleepover. They're slow motion walking at school, the greatest hits. But in the hallway, Sarah pulls some hair out of Laura's head.
Right.
And Laura calls her a stupid bitch.
I did have a problem with the scene with them walking through the thing and all that. Mm-hmm. So they're high school kids, right?
They're supposed to be, yes.
Right. This is the movie. They're high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why this bitch is walking through there with nipples rock hard. And we're supposed to just be like, oh, that's sexy.
Be chill with it, yeah.
Well,
you're a high school kid. What is happening here?
Well,
we don't need that. No, I get it.
In Scream, it was the same thing with Tatum.
But so we're just supposed to be okay with this? You're
but
a Catholic
okay,
girl.
But it's okay because they're all in their 20s.
Yeah, they're all.
But it's not in the movie. The movie.
No,
so
you're right.
I just think to me I was like, okay,
it's a bit much.
I get the whole, we're badass now. We got our little gang now, but I don't feel like we needed the nipples because it's not just like a. Oh, you can kind of see. It's like
they're in the credits.
Yeah, they're there.
They had to hire twins because of child labor laws, but no, I got nothing.
That was just kind of. I was like, you're supposed to be high school kids. Why are you sexualizing them?
So later on at Sarah's house, Sarah's braiding Laura's hair into Rochelle's hair and makes it clear that if Laura will just leave Rochelle alone, nothing will happen to her.
So it's all on her.
Right. So Rochelle asks about the picture that we saw Sarah unpack at the beginning, and we learned that it was Sarah's mother who died giving birth to her. Now, the other side of the room is much more intense.
Yeah. To say the least.
Nancy is kind of hovering her hands over Bonnie's bare back, and Bonnie is crying and begging, I guess, Manon to take her scars away.
That's where I like you said earlier, I wish there was some kind of backstory to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you half lizard? Did you get burned? You know what I mean? What happened? Give us something. Even like a glimpse if she was like had a flashback while she was telling them something.
You know what? Maybe instead of seeing Sarah's backstory,
we could
use that time for Bonnie.
Because we know what happened to Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah, she already told you.
No, yeah.
We already talked about it.
See, here we are rewriting the movie.
Exactly.
So in the next scene, Laura is teasing Rochelle again while she's up on the diving board at the pool. And after she's basically talking shit to Rochelle, she takes her swim cap off and a bunch of hair comes out with it.
Yeah.
She turns and has a giant, angry looking bald spot on the back of her head.
She shouldn't have been talking shit.
She shouldn't have been. And then Rochelle does a perfect dive.
Oh, yeah. Swan dive.
The coach doesn't catch the other girl talking shit, but he catches
her. He's like, oh, shit.
Dude, and he goes and he touches her scalp like he's got some, oh, no, this happened to me. I can...
But I got spray for that. It'll fill it right in.
You'll be fine. 9 laps.
So at the doctor's office again, the doctor is inspecting Bonnie's back, and then with like, I guess some cotton or something.
Yeah.
She's going over the burns, and she's just wiping them shits off.
Yeah.
Like they're nothing.
And her mind's blown.
Yeah. Well, then she goes, it worked. And Bonnie turns around to, I guess, a camera that's filming this and
Yeah.
see her back. I
It's
don't
like-
know what the
I
fuck's
don't-
going on in there.
It's like, is this a live webcam feed?
Yeah, I didn't
You know?
understand it either. It's
And
like,
then the doctor's like, it's almost like it was just like really good makeup or something. Like,
But it's interesting because it worked could refer to the stabby procedure that
Right,
they did or
right.
the spell that, you know,
Right.
whatever. So at school, Bonnie comes into homeroom late, but with fucking mad confidence.
No, she does. The teacher's like, you're late. And she's like, sorry, I'm sexy now or whatever.
yeah,
It's
I love her, but that was a lot.
It was a lot.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, she's in the whole movie. She's been wearing these like bulky jackets and sweaters, and her hair looks all greasy. And now she's come out of the cocoon.
But
Right,
again,
right.
I'm sorry. It's like the she's all that curse.
Yeah.
Because
your glasses
the
off.
entire
Yeah.
time you've been Nev Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry.
My jacket comes off and
It's like, oh shit.
Oh my God, Bonnie.
Yeah.
So later on outside, Bonnie and Rochelle are giving Sarah full credit for their spells working.
Mm-hmm.
And Nancy's kind of in the background. And at this point, she just storms off with her
Yeah,
Walkman.
she's
Wow.
like, should I have wished for a better Walkman? Or like, what the fuck?
So obviously, they say Nancy's upset because hers is the only spell that hasn't worked. And Rochelle says that her spell was that she didn't want to be white trash anymore, which wasn't
Was not
her
at all her
spell.
spell.
yeah, no.
But one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, Rochelle goes, I told her, you're white, honey. Just deal with it, which I thought was hilarious. But again, that's not the that's not
and
the
that
spell.
never
it
happened.
We were there.
Right.
They
We
should have
heard
called
you.
her out and be like, you didn't say that. You just drank the
You
blood.
drank the blood too.
Yeah.
So at Nancy's house, she is intensely praying in her room.
One thing too, they asked earlier too. They were like, "So you guys worship the devil or whatever, or what?" And then she was like, "No, we don't do that or whatever." Or they made some mention about it, but she's clearly has 2 or 3 pictures of the devil on her mirror.
But she also wears a crucifix.
Yeah, I don't
She's
understand.
edgy, okay?
Okay, I'll buy
He'll
it.
accept it.
Yeah, fuck it.
So she comes out of her room in a robe, and her stepdad makes a joke about being able to see right through it. So her mom tells him that he's supposed to be like a father to her. So he makes a joke about her being a sex worker, and the mom kind of lightly smacks him
barely.
And then
on his arm, and he throws her onto the couch like he's gonna fuck her up.
Yeah.
And Nancy screams, stop. The lights go out. Something explodes in the kitchen and catches fire. Ray the stepdad. I've never said his name.
Yeah.
His name is Ray.
Right.
He appears to have a heart attack and then moments later fucking dies in the
Yeah.
ambulance.
Oh, yeah. While Nancy is staring like holes into his heart.
Well, she's good at staring holes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
her
just Nancy's
speed.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Resting witch face.
So later, Nancy and her mom learn that they have inherited $175,000 from Ray. And they are fucking happy and celebrating right in front of the dude that tells them.
Her mom, I don't know if this sounds weird, but she doesn't look rough enough to be an alcoholic
To
and this
portray
and that.
what they're trying to-
She's
No,
like,
not really.
you know what I mean? She looks like a regular lady.
This-
Her
yeah.
skin is smooth. Her hair's done.
It is, you're right. Like, she doesn't look
Yeah,
haggard or
it's-
No,
yeah,
you're
it's
right.
Like, what the hell?
But I will say, first of all, that lawyer or whoever was comically unprepared.
Yeah.
It's like, how many houses how many stepdads have died of heart attacks today that you have to go visit? But my thing is like, what the fuck was up with the 1990s where, look, $175,000 is a life-changing amount of money. But in 2020, how long is that going to last
Gone
you?
pretty quick.
And not being frivolous.
No, I even wrote that too. I said, how long is that going to last you? A month?
And continue because,
Yeah, no. Yeah,
No,
I know
this
exactly what
plays
you're
Yeah.
thinking.
right
Yeah.
into it.
yeah.
So Sarah, Bonnie, and Rochelle go to Nancy's new house, which is apparently in a nice-ass apartment building. As they're walking up to it, Sarah makes it clear that she doesn't think that they had anything to do with Ray dying. And Bonnie's hitting on some random dude. She's come
she's just
180.
out of her shell.
So they go up to the apartment, and Nancy's mom is drunk and happy, and their apartment's huge. And you know when people who aren't used to having money get money and they start buying stupid shit?
Right.
Her mom has a jukebox that only plays Connie Francis records.
So this apartment is fucking breathtaking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're living in goddamn Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're telling me $175,000 again.
how long-
That's what,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
and
saying.
yet you still have enough for this custom jukebox, and then you had enough. There's a goddamn convertible that she's driving. Look, I watched Seinfeld the other day, and Jerry mentioned that an apartment in his building was $400 a month.
Yep.
So I'm like, maybe I'm just fucking not in the loop as to what was going on in the 90s.
I think a lot has changed.
Yeah, but I'm like, there's no way $175,000.
Well,
give
gonna
them like
sustain this.
But
a
you
$2 million life insurance policy.
But you got to think too, though. Look at Seinfeld's apartment compared to the apartment they were in.
True.
Yeah, that's
so maybe
true.
400 for his little apartment, but they were in a fucking.
I know,
penthouse.
but I mean, this is an apartment in New York City versus a penthouse in Los Angeles. But at the same time, you're like, that's a $500,000 apartment.
Yeah,
if they had
like-
nothing before this, that's not enough to sustain them
Yeah,
for
No,
any
they were probably in debt.
substantial amount
They
of
couldn't
time.
even
Yeah.
pay the electric or the fucking.
Yeah.
Right, the view's good, but
Yeah.
you
ceiling's
gotta
leaking.
light a
Yeah,
candle.
they're like,
Right.
look, we can live here for 1 month.
Yeah.
So live it up.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, and her couch, wasn't her couch fucking
Yes.
expensive? But anyway, they go into Nancy's room, and Rochelle reads about glamours, like outwardly presenting something different than what it really is. And Sarah says that she can do that. She changes her eyes from green to brown, and nobody is impressed. So she changes her hair to platinum blonde, and everybody's like, oh shit.
Now this looked a lot cooler as a kid.
Yeah.
Because
I don't think it
you
looks
can tell. Well, it looks like they just like turned
No.
up the exposure on just her
Yeah,
hair because you can
it's-
see her scalp looks funny. It doesn't look as good as it did.
It's magic.
The funny thing that I read is that Robin Tooney
Yes.
had come off of a film where she shaved her head, and so this entire film, all her hair was a wig the entire time.
It does not
What?
look like
No.
It does
Yeah.
not look like a wig at
I
all.
did
No,
not know
yeah,
that
that's
at
excellent
all.
wig.
I
Damn
thought that
good
was her
wig.
hair.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Sarah's able to just shake the blonde out like it's nothing.
That looked cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh because Nancy asked for her to give her a smaller ass. And then we all remember that it's 1996
Well-
and
Yeah.
everybody wanted an invisible ass.
But Sarah's like, I think we did that spell already. Because we just saw you in the previous scene. And I mean, let's be real here.
So that night, maybe, Chris is screaming outside of her bedroom window.
Mm-hmm.
And when she comes to the window, he asks her to move in with him and says that he thinks he's in love with her.
At that point, I'm like, oh shit, here's the monkey's paw portion
100%.
of the
Yep.
spells. Okay.
So she's like, go home. And she goes back inside. And her dad comes out with the flashlight, is like, can I help you? Which, like, is, I guess her dad's just the chillest motherfucker on the
No,
planet.
but Chris's answer,
No one can help me.
I don't think I would have been that cool.
I'm
Oh,
no,
no.
please.
Not at all.
Police shit, I'd have hit him with the fucking flashlight.
You already got a flashlight right there.
So back at the occult shop at an undisclosed amount of time later, Sarah asks Lirio how she can undo a love spell. And Lirio was like, that's not like, it's a
not how it
floodgate.
works,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
just got to let it run its course. Then she explains, and this is kind of like the whole point of the movie. Like, if you had to boil it down to something,
Yeah.
there is no white magic or black magic. It all depends on the heart of the witch using it.
Right.
And that whatever you send out, you get back ×3, which they probably should have read about
learned
before
about
they.
that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Nancy's not even with the group. And I'm like, hey, Nancy, put that book
Nancy,
down.
come
you need,
You
need to hear this.
especially.
Yeah.
I'm going to want to hear this shit.
So you're right. Nancy isn't with them. She's over there looking at a book called Invocation of the Spirit. And as she's looking at a picture of a storm in the book, the storm starts moving and she closes it and she's like, I'm buying this bitch. Lirio tells her that that can be very dangerous and that she needs to be careful. And she's just like, bitch, sell me the book, basically. So the next time we see them, they're at the beach and they're all carrying an animal. Mm-hmm. Rochelle has a fish, Bonnie has a butterfly, Sarah has a bird, and Nancy, very on brand, has a snake. Sarah opens up to Nancy about hallucinating before she tried to kill herself, that she saw bugs and snakes everywhere. And Nancy's like, oh, well, you should respect snakes because they're powerful. And it's like, that's not what...
That's not what
nobody said that.
What we were talking about. And then Nancy's like, let's call the coroners. So they do. Nancy calls East for air and invention. And she says, hear me.
Yeah.
And Bonnie has to remind her, hear us.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a selfish piece of shit.
Yeah.
Shit,
My bad,
I thought
my
this was
bad.
all about me.
Yeah.
Bonnie calls South for fire and feeling. Rochelle calls West for water and intuition. And Sarah calls North for mother and earth. It begins to storm like crazy. Mm-hmm. And Nancy leads them in the invoking. At the height of all this shit, Nancy screams for Manon to fill her. Mm-hmm. All the containers holding the animals break. And Nancy is fucking straight up struck by lightning.
And nobody's like, oh shit.
Yeah, nobody's worried.
Are you okay?
I was like, that was a lot.
Yeah. Dude, the way this is shot is so disorienting.
Yeah, it is.
But not in a bad way. And I would like to say, I meant to mention it a second ago, but when they're walking towards the beach, the song that's playing is badass. It's called Dark Secret by Matthew Sweet. I believe, never heard it before. Maybe it was made just for the soundtrack.
Dude,
but holy shit.
Every song in
that
this.
song was cool as hell. I might buy it.
I read that when they were filming this scene, whenever they were calling the corners and calling Manon specifically, like shit was going crazy. Their equipment would fuck up, the lights would go out, like waves kept coming on. Yeah, so they really felt
maybe it was just the water hitting their equipment.
You know,
it was super natural.
The interesting thing is that I read that Pat Devon, the advisor, she said that the name Manon is very similar to a deity that rules over the sea. And so she said maybe they thought they were summoning that one.
He's like, you talking to me?
Yeah. Oh, my mistake. Sorry.
Sorry, I'll go back. So after she's struck by lightning, the scene just kind of ends.
Yeah.
In the morning, they all wake up on the beach. So I don't know if they passed out or were like, okay, let's go to bed now, girls. I don't know what happened, but
takes a lot out of you.
They wake up to see Nancy fucking walking on water.
Dude,
I heard that Chris Angel was really doing this.
He was
and
the
they
stunt double.
superimposed her face on
The
it.
mind freak, yeah.
They had to cut that out too because he kept screaming it. They didn't know what it was.
Come on, jeez.
Yeah.
They dubbed that too.
She says that she's been blessed and Manon is inside of her. They hear sirens and go over to, I guess, another part of the beach and see several beach like sharks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
they
it looks
all-
like. Yeah, they're just a bunch of different kind of sharks or some shit.
If I'm any of the girls aside from Nancy, I'm like, oh, we fucked up bad.
What have we done?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But Nancy is loving it. She says that she's Manon's daughter and this is her gift.
I guess.
And she's like hugging the dead
and
shark.
She is screaming louder than full volume. And there's other people on the beach. And they're not like, we got to get the fuck out of here. They're just letting her go.
None of the other girls look into it.
No.
At all. So I guess that night they're in Nancy's new convertible.
Again, $175,000 goes a long way.
And Sarah is saying that she feels like all their spells have backfired. She's humiliating Chris. Bonnie's become like this narcissistic asshole.
Yeah.
Nancy makes a red light green and speeds through it. And Rochelle and Bonnie are having a great time.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but what about the other drivers? Like, when you're doing this, you're changing one light.
Yeah, for you.
Everything
Yeah.
else, what the fuck?
Yeah, I wondered that too. I was like,
Right.
where's everybody else on the road?
Yeah. Nancy kind of sees Sarah's concerns as a power struggle. And she's like, you're not going to win them over. And Sarah is like, stop, you're just being paranoid. Nancy's like, do you want out or what? Like, she just takes it to the
next
extreme.
level.
So Sarah's like, she wants in, but one of these days that light is not going to be green. Well, so Nancy races through a red light and almost causes a wreck. And even she seems a little like,
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not enough to change her attitude, I guess. But
she just shakes it off like she did the blonde hair.
Yes. So now we're in the locker room, and Rochelle follows a trail of blonde hair into a shower. Laura's sitting on the floor, and the bitch is Mr. Burns. Okay.
Dude,
bad.
No, it's real bad, and it's so fucking ridiculous because her friend comes up and she's like, "What's the matter?" She's like, "What's the matter? I look like Ben Franklin." What the fuck's the matter? I swear to God, like
wasn't she just losing her hair
a
few days ago or however long ago?
And the other question I have is, why are you at school?
Yes, that's what I thought too. Why would you go back to school?
Like, damn, man.
That's not something. Just, my hair's falling out.
Right.
That's all right. I gotta
Rochelle's
go to school.
like, I got a few ideas for you. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, fucking Hulkster. And then,
Right. Listen here, brother.
Yeah.
My thing about this is she has the audacity to ask Rochelle, what did I do to deserve this?
Let me think about that.
Fucking torturing me?
Yeah. And again, I'm sorry, but I don't feel bad.
No, you've introduced this as a fucking horrible, racist asshole.
Yeah.
I don't feel sympathy for her.
No, I'm like, oh, that's what happens, man.
But
Sorry.
we get this really interesting shot of Rochelle backing away from Laura, and she's standing next to a mirror, and she turns her head, and then a couple moments later, her reflection turns its head.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It turns away from her.
Yeah.
Not really sure what that's supposed to mean other than it just looking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Sarah's house, Chris is on the phone with her, begging her to go out with him, and she finally says, okay, yeah, tomorrow. So now it's tomorrow. And Portishead is playing. I know I keep talking about the music, but
it's a great
such
soundtrack.
a good soundtrack. Sarah, I guess you have a point that she's just weirdly open to confiding in everybody.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
She's telling Chris everything, but she says that she disagreed with the girls once and they turned their back on her. When did that happen?
They didn't turn their back. They were just a little, like, they weren't into her
Yeah.
asking the question.
Nancy was pissed, but the other two were just like, whatever.
Yeah.
That didn't happen anytime that we saw it. But
No.
Chris is literally just saying whatever she wants to hear. And he says that he woke up one day and needed her, and now he's never going to let her go. And she's kind of offended and like, you don't even know me. And he's like, let me give you a back rub.
Yeah.
It's like, that'll solve all these problems.
She's like, we're supposed to go to a restaurant and we're just parked out here. He's like, but back rubs though. So she's like trying to get him to stop because he literally starts rubbing her back.
No, he
Right.
gets pretty touchy.
Yeah, and she asks him to take her home. He won't, so she gets out of the car. She starts running because he starts chasing her,
Yeah.
Right.
and she falls. Now, as a kid, I never noticed that
No.
Chris gets on top of her and...
Oh, you can hear his belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
never
can-
caught that as a kid.
What the fuck?
When I was a kid, I thought he was just trying to stop her,
Yeah.
but no, it's
He's
much
in-
worse.
He's in love with her.
Yeah,
He's
because
something.
that's how you
It's-
show
Well,
love.
fucking horrible.
She put the spell on him.
Yeah.
So it's going to
So,
come back bad.
Here's my question about this, okay? The lady at the shop said that the intent of the spell doesn't matter. It's what's in the witch's heart. All we're supposed to know about Sarah is that she's a good natural witch.
Right.
So why did this spell backfire?
In the movie's defense, the only thing I can think of is, again, we said think back to the last interaction that they had. Maybe him being in love with her was supposed to be a punishment because she really didn't jump on it right away. Like she, made him her like zombie for a little bit, but she
Yeah,
wasn't
but I
like,
mean-
oh, we're in love. Like she didn't even really act like she. I mean, I don't know.
Well, if
Maybe
she-
it came from a place of
if she asked him, or if she put the spell for him to be in love with her, but she didn't go with it, she's just
you should try to
there.
punish him.
Yeah, maybe
Oh,
it was like,
okay.
okay, well, you're not doing what you asked.
Yeah.
You wanted him to fall in love with you so you could be in love with him, but now you're not.
And so we're going to make
So
him
now-
obsessed.
yeah,
She like
this
played
is-
with him that day.
Yeah.
Making him carry her shit, and then she really didn't give him the time of day again until now.
No, I mean, I have
there's questions.
I have another issue later we'll talk about.
Okay, so she kicks Chris in the balls and she runs, like into the woods. There's a lot of
Yeah,
woods
there's a
in
lot
this
of-
town. she makes her way to Rochelle's house and she's dirty and crying. And for somebody who's just had a falling out, Rochelle immediately brings her inside.
Right.
So later on at Rochelle's house, everyone's there. Sarah asks Nancy to just leave it alone, but Nancy is like, no, they're having a party tonight and Chris is going to be there. So she goes to the party. Mm-hmm. And what is probably my dream outfit? Like, she looks amazing.
The house that the party is in is pretty damn incredible.
Yeah. And Space Hog is playing.
Another, I literally wrote, the soundtrack is great.
It's
in
so
my notes.
good. She goes and everyone looks disgusted that she's even there.
Yeah.
A girl runs into another room and is like, Nancy Downs is here. And Chris is in that room. So he's like, what? He's drunk, like, obviously. And he goes to her and he's like, is Sarah with you? And she just leads him upstairs. So he lays down in the bed and we get confirmation from Nancy as she's kind of like crawling on top of him that they did have something.
Yeah.
happened.
So again, it's pretty
so
conflicting.
many on both of their ends. But
what happened?
Well, she tries to kiss him now and he like pushes her onto the floor. So she starts crying and then glamours herself into Sarah. So Chris is like, oh man, that's cool. And they start making out.
Yeah, he's apparently so drunk that he's not at all weirded out by this.
Oh my God, man, I thought you were Nancy
my bad.
for a
I don't know what the fuck I was thinking.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
I was like,
Just okay.
but and the fire was already going. So
In the
like,
room?
did they just They're
They're
they
like,
just
oh,
have the fire?
didn't
It's
even
safe
notice-
to just leave that.
Yeah, the fireplace was already lit.
Yeah.
Did she set this room up for him?
I
Or
know
did
she
they
just
go
got
in
there. I didn't even
Or-
notice
yeah.
that. But outside, the rest of the girls show up in a taxi and they enter the party. Now, Laura is there wearing a horrible wig and she tries to talk to Rochelle. And the way that we see it, she goes, listen, and then it cuts off.
Yeah,
and I
we
wonder
never-
if there was a scene there that got cut.
I want more of that.
I would have loved to see that because she's like, listen.
Maybe she's seeing, like, look, of course, the character arc of the bully is eventually the bully realizes that they're a fucking
they're
asshole.
an asshole,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, at least in movies. But
No.
Shit.
so it would have been good to have that moment, especially for Rochelle.
Yes, I would have liked to have seen that. But Sarah goes upstairs and catches herself making out with Chris. And
That's just herself.
Nancy immediately goes back into herself and is to herself. I don't know.
Yeah.
And is laughing when Chris is like horrified. So immediately Nancy's like, well, you only like her because you put a spell on you.
Yeah.
It's like,
Isn't she your friend?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
she
you're
throws her under
selling
the
me
bus
out.
immediately. Chris tells her she's just jealous, which is clearly the wrong thing to say. Nancy gets out of bed and is telling him that he's nothing. He treats women like whores, but he's a whore. She starts gliding toward him on the points of her shoes.
that is such a neat shot.
No, it looks
I don't know
really
why.
cool.
It gave me
It's like,
goosebumps as a
holy
kid. I
shit.
remember that.
Yeah. So Chris is like, I'm sorry, which is, again, apparently the wrong thing to say.
Yeah. I think anything was the wrong thing to say.
Yeah, Nancy fucking flips out. She's screaming at him. The window flies open and Chris just falls out of it.
So, again, I'm sorry, but everyone who's gotten their comeuppance so far, I'm kind of okay with it. I'm not.
Sarah is horrified.
Right.
Well, that's her.
And
That's a difference of opinion.
later, we're in Sarah's room with her and her dad. And Sarah is like candidly saying, it was never supposed to go this far. And her dad's like, what do you mean it was an accident? He
Yeah,
fell. Like,
he
he's
literally
not
never
listening to
asked any
anything.
questions.
Yeah. He tries to comfort her and she tells him to leave because everything she touches turns to shit. And he is like, all right. And
Well,
leaves.
Sure.
Well, two things about that scene. Number one, she says about Chris, he was a good guy underneath it all. Where the fuck are you getting that?
That's a really good
Where did
question.
you even get that?
I
Even
didn't see
before
any
you
of
put a
that.
spell on him, he was a
He was an
fucking
asshole
he
to
was
begin
still
with.
a douche.
After you put a spell on him, he was a potential rapist.
So where did that happen?
I
I
mean-
don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Where's the good guy?
Yeah.
And then
oh.
her dad is going to touch her to like soothe her.
Yeah.
And then she says, don't, because everything I touch turns to shit. Like, what are you talking about? He was going to touch you.
She's confused. She's
Yeah,
mourning.
I didn't.
I guess the scene could have been handled better.
Yeah. So outside, Sarah cuts Nancy out of a group picture, Mean Girl style, and does a binding spell on her, which is literally binding the photo in like a ribbon,
Right.
binding herself from doing harm to herself or others, which like, that's not bad.
No.
It's not
No,
a bad thing.
not at all.
But that night, Sarah has a nightmare about the girls flying in through her window and choking her in her bed.
Well, I think Sarah was watching Salem's Lot before she went to bed.
Yeah.
They were like, if you tell them you're a witch, you get a free small soda at the movies.
No, that's like it was a direct ripoff.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Like, to be fair. So at school the next day, Sarah locks herself in a bathroom stall. The stall unlocks by itself, and guess who's standing there? They ask about the police questioning Sarah, and Nancy knows that Sarah is thinking
Yeah.
about leaving the circle. Sarah brings up Chris and Ray, but she had taken a stance before that they had nothing to do with Ray dying.
Right.
So I thought that it was weird that she lumped him in.
Right.
But Nancy was like, they deserved it. And Sarah's like, this is my stop. I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
she wants out.
And also, the school uniform is just a suggestion at this point.
Yeah, no shit.
A vague suggestion.
Yeah.
So they basically threaten her, saying if she's going to leave the circle, she should probably leave the school, the town, the planet.
The planet, they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
Like-
say, like, they don't need her anymore, basically. And Nancy asked her to stop doing spells on her, which, fuck.
Yeah, it might have been a lucky guess.
Might have been a lucky guess. But then she says, you know, in the olden times, if a witch betrayed her coven, they would kill her, which is a really like heavy and intense thing to say. And then she's like, okay, bye. And
It's like just something to think about.
yeah. But Bonnie and Rochelle kind of allude to her having nightmares, like
Yeah.
knowing that she's having nightmares before they follow Nancy out.
Like, how you sleeping?
So Sarah goes back to the occult shop and asks Lirio for help and is super candid about everything, even saying that people have died, that they've
Yeah.
killed people. Lirio is very motherly looking in this scene to me, and she's dressed all in white, I guess, kind of to cement.
It's, yeah,
She's good.
some Wizard of Oz stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wind gusts from behind that black curtain, and Lirio leads her back there. The curtain that she wasn't allowed.
Right.
Yeah. So we get a shot of a pentagram on the floor, and while we're looking at it, everything looks wavy around it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah,
like,
no, I noticed that.
which was like kind of disorienting.
Yeah.
But Lirio tells Sarah that she has more light in her than she's ever seen in anybody else. And that she's like, you know, your mom was a witch. And she's like, what?
Yeah, she says it like, oh, everybody knows.
Like nothing. Yeah.
Like,
Everybody
how?
knew that. You didn't know that?
Yeah, weird.
So she tells Sarah she just needs to surrender to a higher power and invoke the spirit. Which I'd be like, I don't want to fucking do that
Yeah,
shit
dude,
after what I've
we
seen it do.
did some spirit stuff
Yeah.
before. It didn't really.
But
pan
Lirio,
out.
Lirio says that Nancy has darkness in her, so that's why it went left, basically.
Yeah.
So just as she gives in and begins the invocation, Sarah sees the shop explode in her mind.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's Nancy, and runs away.
I'm sorry, dude, but the shop exploding looked like something out of Goosebumps.
Oh my God, that's so...
And because the way it just went back to
That's
normal,
so
it's like
I
the
wasn't
dog.
I wasn't
eyes
gonna
and
say
shit.
anything, but
Yeah.
it did look bad.
Yeah.
It looked real bad.
It was too much. Like that's literally all I thought about whenever I was watching. I was like, man, because a lot of the stuff that they've done has looked pretty decent. And then a lot of the stuff that they did also hasn't looked very good.
I just thought I didn't even think about Goosebumps. I just thought it looked shitty. I was just like, damn. I was like,
Like I can't put my finger
yeah, I
on
was
it.
like, I don't know
just
what
hate
this
it.
down.
is. Yeah,
So Sarah runs home.
but why? This lady's trying to help you.
And she calls out to her. She's like, Sarah.
yeah,
I
she's
was
like,
like, I was
wait,
just gonna
yeah,
save
what
your
are
fucking
doing?
life.
Nancy calls her and says that her dad and her stepmom went back to San Francisco to look for her because they think she ran away. Mm-hmm. There's a flight number jotted down.
Because that's what you do.
Yeah. And Nancy's like, turn on the news. The news says that flight crashed and there were no survivors. Sarah runs outside, and as she's leaving, the like reflection of light from the window there's just snakes all
Yeah.
over. So we know what's coming.
Creepy crawlies.
Creepy crawlies. She goes outside and there are snakes, rats, spiders, maggots, lizards. So she can't leave. It's like in a game where there's something in the way and you're like, I got to find another way.
My thing is, I would have just hoofed it over the stairs.
Yeah.
I would have tried.
Yeah.
Jump
Like she didn't
something.
even. Yeah, she didn't even try. She's
I'm
like, well,
stuck in the
guess
house
I'm stuck.
now.
Yeah.
So she goes back inside and everywhere inside is covered in bugs and snakes. So she goes into the bathroom and hides in the bathtub. And Nancy opens the shower door and is like, man, you really should just kill yourself. And then turns on the water and leaves.
No, the turning on the water was just insult to injury.
Right
that
now
took
I'm
no
all
magic.
wet. What the fuck?
Yeah. I was already scared.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Sarah comes out of the shower and all the bugs and snakes and everything are gone. But the three girls are downstairs and Nancy's like, oh, you're going to kill yourself tonight. And then they all start floating. Well, the three of them start floating.
Right.
Nancy says that Sarah killed Chris and mockingly applauds her for killing her mom.
Fucked
which
up.
is really fucked up.
Yeah.
Rochelle's like, why won't she use magic against us? And Nancy said it's because she's weak. And Sarah just kind of stands there and is just taking it all in, I guess.
I am. So I'm sorry, but again, it seems like Rochelle and Bonnie are genuine people.
Yeah.
So why did they get so drunk off of Nancy's bullshit so quickly?
Well, I feel like even in the beginning, they followed Nancy around. Like,
Yeah,
even
but I
before
mean,
she had that power.
I don't know,
So,
man.
I don't either. And I feel like Bonnie got really narcissistic and kind of asshole-ish. But Rochelle
no.
didn't.
Yeah.
Like,
It's-
she even looked remorseful when Laura was...
From the get-go.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
She was not...
So, but
Yeah.
anyway, they start chanting, now is the end, let her go in peace. And a suicide note comes down to Sarah that is straight to the point.
Oh, yeah.
I killed Chris. I'm sorry. Love, Sarah.
Love Sarah.
Nancy slits Sarah's wrists and she bleeds on the paper. So Nancy reminds Sarah that this is the part where she runs.
Yeah, well, that's a great part where Sarah's like, this isn't real. And then Nancy's like, then why are you still bleeding? She's like, huh? You answer me that.
And then she's like, run.
Yeah.
And so Sarah runs. She goes upstairs and looks at that picture of her mom. Downstairs, Nancy tells Rochelle to go check on Sarah. And when Rochelle says no, Nancy threatens to slit her throat. So Bonnie's like, I'll go with you.
Yeah. We'll go together.
Yeah. Sarah's lying on the floor invoking the spirit at this point. And she hears the girls, Bonnie and Rochelle, calling for her upstairs. And she says a quick spell to make them see.
×3.
Yes. Bonnie and Rochelle, on their way to Sarah, catch themselves in a mirror and they are Mr. Burns and Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's real bad.
Bonnie is burnt the fuck up and Rochelle is completely bald on the top of her head.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm sorry, but...
Rochelle didn't deserve it.
No, and
Bonnie
honestly,
didn't really
Bonnie
deserve it
didn't
either.
either. They were both genuine in their spells whenever they drank the blood and the wine.
Yeah.
It was, I want to have the strength to not hate people that hate me.
Yeah.
And it's, I want to look as beautiful on the outside as I feel on the inside. At what point is that a negative thing?
It's not.
To where you ×3, then Rochelle should be the kindest person on the planet Earth and Bonnie should be gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
Or what are we multiplying? You can't multiply a negative to a positive. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
true. When I was a kid, I was like, yeah. But now
That's
it's like,
what you get.
yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah,
no.
it just doesn't-
Really, only Nancy is the one that's like,
Yeah. They should have caught their reflection. Bonnie's like, damn.
look at
Look
me.
at me. But instead, it's this.
So Rochelle's like, it's coming back ×3, and they get the fuck out of there.
Mm-hmm. But when they run down the stairs, we see that they don't really look like that.
No. And well, when they're looking at their reflection, we see that they don't really look like that.
Also true.
Yeah. So upstairs, the picture of Sarah's mom starts moving, and she tells Sarah not to be afraid. So she continues the invocation. The windows start rattling, lightning strikes, the windows fly open. Sarah's wrists heal themselves.
Yeah.
And every surface in the room is reflecting the storm outside. At this point, Nancy comes upstairs with a knife.
Right.
So she comes in and stands with her back to a mirror, and her reflection turns into Sarah, and Sarah grabs her through the mirror and steps out. And she's basically like, Manon saved me, and he told me to give you a message. You're in deep shit. She has abused her power, and she's in trouble. So roaches start crawling out of Nancy's dress.
Yeah.
And her fingers turn to snakes. She like throws herself back onto the floor. And her hair starts turning into snakes, and bugs and roaches start crawling out of her mouth. She screams, and then it all goes away.
I read that they kind of they did like composite shots and then put them together. They covered her in like a green screen thing and then did the bugs and stuff. And then they put the bugs in later so they weren't actually on top of her.
Oh, good, because there's
there's no way that I would ever... No, and I'm not letting them turn my hands into snakes.
Right.
I prefer you didn't.
Yeah.
So Sarah's like, who's pathetic now? And we see that the tables have turned.
Right.
Nancy gets up and is like, look, things got crazy, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and head out.
We all said things we didn't mean. All right.
So she tries to leave, and Sarah's like, wait, and starts doing the binding spell on Nancy again. And she's not having it.
No.
She flies at her with the knife. They're floating and fighting against the wall.
It's pretty badass shot.
Yeah.
You can very easily tell how they did it.
Yeah.
But it still looks, it's a really good visual.
I also, when I was a kid, I was like, it's weird because Nancy is like raining blows down on her and like nothing is working. And I read that people are like, well, because the binding spell is working.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was like, damn, that makes that
I never
seem
even thought about
cooler.
that.
Neither
'Cause
did I.
She was raining.
Yeah, nothing was happening.
No.
But shit is flying everywhere. Like furniture's moving. This house apparently was full of papers because they're going everywhere.
Yeah.
Nancy moves out of the way just before a like giant dresser smashes into Sarah.
Right.
She comes back, moves the dresser, and Sarah's gone. But underneath all this paper and trash, her clothes are perfectly laid out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but not the greatest trick. I mean, right?
I just don't know how it worked because Nancy is about to stab the clothes and Sarah comes back into them. So, like, was she there the whole time? Why did she not get crushed?
That's why I'm saying it's not great. Because
It's confusing.
The thing is that I'm sorry, but if I'm about to be stabbed, why am I going to reappear where I'm?
Yeah. Oh,
right.
shit.
Where the knife is going, so I can be there when I die. Like,
Well, before she gets stabbed, she kicks the shit out of Nancy.
oh yeah.
She goes flying and lands against a mirror and it breaks and falls on her, I guess. And then we get this like dramatic shot of just glass.
Yeah,
A lot of glass.
that was a choice.
It was a choice.
Let's put it that way.
So the next day, Rochelle and Bonnie come over to apologize for trying to kill her. And we get this over explanation by Rochelle when we see Sarah's dad. Oh, you know that was just a glamour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right there.
Yeah, I've been talking to him all morning.
Yeah. No,
When he got home, was he like, "What the fuck happened to my
Oh,
house?"
yeah.
Oh,
Seriously.
no,
He was like, "Hi, girls." He's like the most overly chill
he's
dude
like,
in the
last time I
world.
saw you were at a sleepover.
Yeah,
hanging out with my
everything's
daughter.
fine.
I made you Rice Krispie squares.
and Tang.
Yeah.
But what happened to the house? Anyway, so Bonnie asks Sarah if she still has her powers, and Rochelle's like, "'Cause we don't.
And Bonnie's like, damn it. Don't give it away.
Don't spill the tea." Bonnie is like, "Well, you should hang out with us sometime." And Sarah basically is like, "Yeah, hold your breath." And they go to leave, and they're like, "She probably doesn't even have her powers anyway."
I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, no.
That doesn't make any sense.
So Sarah causes a storm to come out of nowhere.
Sidebar, her dad is still there.
He's
He's like,
Yeah.
oh, damn, storm coming through. Like,
It looks like rain.
yeah. It's like, I watched the Weather Channel. I didn't see this shit.
Didn't say anything about this.
No.
Lightning hits a tree and breaks a big ass branch off, and it almost falls on them.
Uh-huh.
And Sarah tells them to be careful because they don't want to end up like Nancy. No, they don't want to end up like
No,
Nancy.
they do not.
The last shot of the movie, Nancy is screaming and restrained to a hospital bed. She keeps saying that Manon is still inside of her, and an orderly comes in and gives her a sedative. She looks fucking insane.
Yes.
And to end the movie, she is just saying that she's flying. She looks...
Yeah.
So I don't know if it has literally driven her mad or if they just think that she's crazy because of what she's saying.
Right, because, I mean, maybe she's not.
Yeah.
You know, I did read that there was supposed to be a straight-to-DVD sequel about what happened to Nancy next, and it never got made.
I think that's
Good.
probably a good... Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is the end of The Craft. What did you guys think of it?
I still didn't. Like, I was just like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, I just didn't. And I don't want to trash on it and, be like, oh, this movie sucked. But
Right.
I was just confused. I was just like, it was what it was. And it's all right. There was a lot of holes. There was a lot of...
There's some holes that
There
I never
are.
really noticed before.
No.
A lot of weird stuff, but it was okay. I mean, there's dead sharks.
How can you go wrong?
Uh,
I still like it a lot. I don't like it as much as I did as a kid, but I mean, I still think it's a really good movie that I would recommend people see. I do think it ended kind of with a whimper. Like the last act kind of just falls apart for me.
I feel like the confrontation was a little... Yeah.
It's not as great as it could be. And especially with the powers, like it's literally, you feel that you have the powers of basically
Everything.
above
Yeah.
gods. And so you just make a bunch of bugs appear.
yeah. No, yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know.
She also wrote a suicide note.
That's true, but it was
very
only like
succinct-
it was like 20 words.
Yeah, but
So I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that the last act could have been more than it was, but I'm not gonna say this is a bad movie at all.
No.
I really like this movie, and it might be clouded by nostalgia. I'm not gonna lie to you, but no, I think it's a great movie.
I still love The Craft.
No.
And like I said, there are a lot of holes that I didn't ever notice
No.
until watching it this time. But even with all its flaws, it meant so much to me when I was younger. And Rachel True was also such a
Yes.
like inspirational almost to see her in this. I don't love how they lumped her character in with the other girls
No.
because
Right.
I feel like, and if I had the reins, Sarah would have been a false protagonist and Rochelle would have turned out to be the good witch that
100%.
I mean, but
I'm sorry, dude. Sarah's boring.
boring as hell. But
I don't know. They're all pretty boring to me. I mean, I don't think any of them stood out. Even what's her
Nancy.
face? Nancy. I mean, she was just crazy. That was it.
I mean, if we have to put people in front of people, Rochelle is more interesting than
no, absolutely.
and I feel like it would have been a more interesting story if you have somebody that's already in the coven is the one that turns around like, look, I've been with you for years.
Yeah, this is
and
too
I'm
much.
realizing
Yeah.
thanks to Sarah
Yeah.
that you're fucking off it, man.
But no, they just followed blindly. And I feel like Rochelle never got resolution with Laura.
No,
because
her arc is just
I really feel like that scene was cut short. I feel like there should have been more to her, like, I guess maybe apologizing to her at the party.
Yeah.
I
Right,
mean,
right.
and Bonnie and Rochelle clearly had good hearts.
Yeah.
So I feel like, honestly, even after everything that happened, I believe their apology was genuine. So I don't know why they had to be so shitty to Sarah at the
Yeah.
end. I feel like it would have been a better thing if they had actually, you know what? Fuck Nancy.
Yeah.
We'll do our own shit.
yeah. No, I mean, there were definitely some missteps. I feel like we
Made
wrote a
yeah.
better alternative to it. But I still love it for what it is.
No, yeah.
And again, Rachel True, that was a really big moment for me personally. Just her being in
Right,
this.
right.
A sincere thank you to Rachel True.
Yes, thank you very much. So I guess that brings us to ratings. I hate going first. Again, like I said, this movie means a lot to me for more than just what the movie is. That being said, I still really enjoy watching this movie. Like you said, T, there are parts of it that haven't exactly aged well.
No.
And like you said, John Paul, there are a lot of holes. But I don't know. And I'm probably being more generous than you two are going to be, but on a scale of 1 to 10 menos, I give The Craft 7 out of 10 menos. I will now open the floor.
Everything you said, I agree with. You know, this is one of those movies that you have to respect the cult status of it and understand the product of the time, you know, as far as the effects are concerned.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like, well, if it could have looked better, they probably would have made it look better.
Well, of
you know?
course, yeah.
But The story, to me, I feel like is very important. I've got the nostalgic factor as well, but there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of things I would change. But it's a movie that I love, that I would recommend. But keeping it realistic, I would give The Craft 6.5 Manos out of 10. JP.
I'm going to be honest here.
Okay.
All right. If I can leave the holes aside and the effects that are dated, and it means nothing to me. Like, it's just a movie that was made a long time ago that did absolutely nothing for me. Like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Would I watch it on my own again? No. Ooh. Would I show it to the kids? Only if you're the reason showing it to them. And I know it sounds weird, but I mean, like, all the guys in this movie are dicks.
No, they are.
So,
except the dad, who's just dumb.
Yeah.
Oh, but still, he's stupid. So, I mean, and not to take anything away from the female cast, because I loved all of them, and I thought they all did a great job.
They did.
But there's nothing that grabbed me about this movie. And I know this is gonna, people are probably gonna listen to this and then be like, "What the fuck?" The whole "we're the weirdos, mister." I don't even remember that until recently when people, it that means nothing to me.
Wow.
What is that? What does that have to do? You're nobody. You're what? You're Bobby Boucher's girlfriend. Get the fuck out of here. What do you really want me to remember that? From what? I remember Waterboy more than I do this.
What is your number?
A 5. I'm going to stay in the middle. It's not bad. It's not good for me. It's a decent movie. It just, like I said, it didn't do anything for me.
I think you can pinpoint the exact moment Nae's heart broke in half.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, babe. I know you like the movie,
I do.
But it just me personally, like some movies that we might watch, you're gonna not, and it's not like
no,
I'm saying,
for sure. It's all a matter of
I'm
opinion.
not gonna sit here and be like, "Our movie's trash,"
No.
because it wasn't. It's not.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that grabbed me. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, okay, it's a movie about witches, and nothing against witches. I love you guys, everybody. Warlocks, whatever. But it just didn't. It felt like there was a lot of things that were over the top for no reason. There was a lot of things that were dumbed down for no reason. Like you said at the end, why were they dicks to her when they were saying, "I'm sorry"?
That's a
Instead
fair
of
question.
You seen what happened to Nancy, why not be like, "Hey, look, we fucked up.
Remember we were friends?
Yeah, we were friends. I'm sorry. Please don't make us be like that."
Yeah.
Instead, they're bitch ain't even got no powers.
Yeah.
For real.
We had floaty times, remember?
You guys
Light as a
ran
feather,
away.
stiff as a board?
You have no idea what happened to this lady, but you come back and she's in a fucking mental institution. Now you want to talk shit to the only person that was the last one to see
With
her.
her, yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know what I mean? It's just like, come on. And then like the story, you were saying about the story is them. They could have, let's see a little more.
Yeah.
Let's see something. But that's just me. That was just me.
I respect that.
I have to. Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate The Craft, and what should we watch next? Let us know on Twitter at @ThePodMortem. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Twitter at Blood and Smoke, at RealStreeter84, and at TravisMWH. And remember, be mindful of what you put out into the world. It comes back ×3. Until next time.